Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. This week is National Infertility Awareness Week. Nothing is as fundamental to the human experience as birth. Silicon Valley and other investors are hoping to change that. They want to, quote-unquote, reinvent reproduction because clearly man has the authority and the know-how to augment even God's design of procreation. Katelyn Shelton joins us, and she has questions about the whole process. Katelyn is a visiting fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center working on reproductive bioethics. Katelyn, great to speak with you. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So, for the sake of our listeners, please provide us an overview of what's going on with these tech companies. What is the plan in terms of reinventing reproduction?
Yes, so there are a host of new fertility-focused startups in Silicon Valley that are seeking to reinvent or hack reproduction. They are looking to artificially engineer reproduction so that essentially parents can design their own babies. And they're doing this through a new technology called polygenic risk assessments, where they take sometimes a single cell from an embryo to sequence its entire genome so that they can give parents a risk assessment for all the potential diseases that baby might have in the future. And the notable thing about this technology is that it isn't giving parents, or it isn't diagnosing an embryo with these various things. It's giving parents a predicted sense of what this future child, what this already existing child might develop in the future. And it's allowing parents to choose not only for diseases that their future child might have, screen out children that might have these diseases, but it also allows them to choose traits in their future children, like their gender or their eye color, or even some companies are advertising that they can let parents predict their child's IQ. It's designer baby eugenics stuff. It's weird, it's wrong, and it should not be allowed to happen.
I agree with you completely. My bride and I are expecting right now, and I find the whole thing abhorrent, this notion that's being pushed forth. What's the significant difference between a diagnosis versus a predictive description?
Yeah, so a diagnosis is you go to the doctor's office and you say, I'm having these symptoms, and they run a few tests and they say, yep, you have strep throat, or you have cancer, or some other actual diagnosis. These tests that they are screening embryos for run on predictive technologies. They sequence the entire genome of the embryo and they put it through this AI-generated algorithm technology that then will screen for these polygenic traits, which just means traits that are contingent upon several different genes working together in tandem. And it's very, very hard for normal humans to put these things together and learn about how they might work together to eventually develop something like blue eyes, or a prevalence for, or a capacity for cancer in the future. But whenever you're using these AI technologies, the AI can do it really well. And so these companies are selling this technology. Who knows how well it works? I'm sure in the future we will see lawsuits. Just like a few days ago, I was reading a story about this lawsuit. This homosexual couple paid for a woman to gestate a baby. They bought a surrogate womb to have a child with the surrogate, and they ordered a boy and they got a girl, and they're suing this fertility company for essentially not not giving them what they ordered. And I can only imagine that we'll start to see that more and more in the future, because if you have these companies that are offering this package and selling you this testing that give you all these predictive markers for likelihood for your child to be this tall or have this color eyes or not get cancer, what happens when inevitably they're wrong?
Do we know what the market reception is for this technology thus far?
I think it seems like from people that I've talked to, even people who are pro IVF, that they don't like the idea of designer babies. They don't like the idea of eugenics. That's hopeful to me, but who knows how long that will hold culturally. Already, I have friends who have a predisposition to certain diseases or already have a child who is disabled, being pressured in the doctor's office to use IVF and predictive screening technologies to choose embryos that would not have those disabilities. And that's just standard practice.
What is this going to do to worsen our present social imagination about children?
You know, I think it only continues to degrade the way we view and think about children. With the advent of hormonal birth control in the 1960s, we began to view children as a choice. And the more our society has progressed with various forms of birth control, and now these technologies that allow us to create embryos and now screen embryos based on whatever criteria we as parents want, it only continues to make us see children like they're a product or something that we control, something that we can design, and that is dehumanizing.
As we go down this route of further commodifying children, are there certain legal stopgaps that are being discussed right now for this technology?
You know, I'm not aware of any. I do think it's notable that there are more regulations surrounding the treatment of equine embryos in the United States, that is horses, than there are for human embryos in the United States. And I think one low-hanging fruit is we could institute these checks on the clinics themselves. They're not subject to regulation or oversight. And so one easy thing is we're going to institute a governmental oversight into these fertility clinics and the standards to which they are held. We have several cases already of clinics mishandling embryos, like the case in Alabama a couple years ago where the door to the freezer was left open. A number of embryos were killed in the process of that door being left ajar and someone stumbling in there and knocking over a few trays. We have cases recently, one out of California, where a doctor just took tons of embryos and moved them to a different location. And all of these are things that we don't have rules or regulations about, and I think it's really low-hanging fruit. It should be really easy for us to put a few guardrails around the treatment of embryos, human embryos in the United States.
Could the sheer inaccuracy of the predictive descriptions be a future avenue for a barrage of lawsuits as well?
Totally. I think probably, unfortunately, the only way these companies will stop is lawsuits in the future for parents who wind up with children who exhibit qualities that are contrary to what they chose based on the data given to them by these companies. Now, I think the companies will come back and say, these weren't diagnoses. We're just giving you more information to try and make the best decision for you and your family. I do think that they can be held to account. I think they will. The question is, will it be now or will it be 10, 15, 20 years or more down the road when countless lives have been affected?
This is horrifying, to say the least, and I'm really grateful that at the EPPC and numerous other institutions there's a dialogue for the reclamation of the meaning of the human person. Are we seeing some kind of a shift, at least, in anthropology, the understanding of the value of the human person in the social sphere?
I hope so. My colleague at EPPC, Carl Truman, is a wonderful theologian and professor, and he has a new book coming out on the desecration of man. And it's all about the way our culture views the human person, and the positive thing about his book that it offers is, we can reconsecrate the human person, and we need to focus on what that means.
Katelyn, tremendous joy. Thank you very much for your work and your time.
Thanks so much.
My guest has been Katelyn Shelton, visiting fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, focusing on reproductive bioethics. We've been talking about new technology that's trying to quote-unquote reinvent reproduction and the moral problems that it'll cause. Stay tuned, I'm Marcus Peter.